Welcome to a Legendarium special about Claudius, Rome's fourth emperor. In the comments section, please let me know whether you consider Claudius to be a good or bad emperor. Claudius, or Tiberius Claudius Caesar Augustus, came into the world during the year 10 BC. He struggled with many physical illnesses, including tremors of the head and hands, a limp, and sometimes he foamed at the mouth. Historians have wondered if he suffered from cerebral palsy or Tourette's syndrome. Regardless, Claudius's family saw him as a great embarrassment. Claudius's mother Antonina, the daughter of Mark Antony, believed her son a monster, a man whom Mother Nature had begun work upon but then flung aside. When she accused someone of being stupid, she said, "He is a bigger fool even than my son Claudius." These handicaps saw Claudius repeatedly passed over for a chance at important public offices. His imperial relatives went out of their way to place him far down the line of succession. Only Emperor Tiberius proved willing to give Claudius public office, but even then he only appointed him to low-prestige priesthoods. Claudius finally abandoned his political aspirations and filled his days with drinking, gambling, womanizing, and other wholesome pursuits. Yet when not distracting himself, Claudius spent long hours immersed in books. Despite having been labeled a dullard by his family, Claudius possessed a sharp mind that impressed the historian Livy, who urged him to take up writing. Claudius later wrote dozens of books on the history of Carthage, the Etruscans, the Roman Republic, and the Roman alphabet. The future emperor's works have since been lost, but they earned the respect of scholars in their time. Yet everything changed for Claudius during the year 37 AD. That year, Claudius's nephew Caligula assumed the imperial purple. To shore up his questionable claim to the imperial purple, Caligula appointed his uncle Claudius, then almost 46 years old, as his co-consul. Of course, Caligula still delighted in mocking his uncle and co-consul for his infirmities. When Claudius dozed off during dinner gatherings, Caligula urged his guests to pelt him with olive and date stones. In AD 41, the Praetorian Guard, sworn protectors of the Roman emperor, murdered Emperor Caligula, his wife, and his daughter at the imperial palace. As the story goes, upon hearing the commotion, a frightened Claudius ran for his life and hid on a balcony. The Praetorians found him cowering behind a curtain, but rather than killing him, they saluted him as Rome's new emperor. Claudius's disabilities may have given them the impression that he could be easily controlled. Yet once in power, Claudius showed himself cleverer than previously believed. Claudius avoided a confrontation with the Roman Senate and bought the loyalty of the Praetorian Guard with a massive 15,000 sesterci donative per man, donative being a polite word for bribe. His ailments appeared to improve after he took power, and he later claimed that he only faked them to protect himself from his bloodthirsty family. Some historians have even argued that Claudius planned, or at least knew of, the plot on Caligula's life. For his first act, Claudius executed Cassius Chaerea, the ringleader of Caligula's assassination, even though Claudius may very well have known what Cassius planned to do, assuming that he didn't give the order. Claudius then turned his attention to promoting good government. When food riots erupted in Rome during a long drought, Claudius imported grain to feed the hungry people. He also reclaimed farmland by draining the Fucine Lake in central Italy, but not before staging a mock sea battle on it, which involved 19,000 gladiators, sailors, and soldiers. He also abolished the treason trials Caligula used to dispose of his real or imagined enemies. Despite all these accomplishments, Claudius faced rabid opposition from Rome's senators, who viewed him as weak and illegitimate. To prove himself, Claudius launched one of the boldest military campaigns of the 1st century, the conquest of Britain. In AD 43, Claudius sent a force of 40,000 soldiers and war elephants across the English Channel. The Romans soon conquered a stronghold at modern-day Colchester and captured the Catuvellauni tribal leader Caradicus. Claudius visited Britain and remained for 16 days, appearing before his new subjects riding an elephant. One can only imagine what these tribal people, who never saw an animal larger than a cow, imagined when they saw a man garbed in purple and gold riding this towering, trumpeting animal. Did they believe that a god walked among them, or did they simply realize that resistance would bring nothing but death? In time, some Romanized Britons founded a temple where they worshipped Claudius as a god. And with his conquest, Claudius returned to a hero's welcome in Rome. He organized and attended chariot races and gladiatorial bouts religiously. He often stayed glued to his seat for hours at a time to avoid missing even a second of bloodshed. Once a killer whale became stuck in the harbor of Ostia, and Claudius decided to put on a show. He ordered the creature ensnared in nets and rode out personally with Praetorian cohorts to kill the monster, and before the whale died, it swamped one of the ships with its waterspout and sent it to the bottom of the bay. Unfortunately, Emperor Claudius proved less lucky in his love life. Claudius's first betrothal ended after the girl's parents endured a political disgrace and fell from the imperial family's favor. His second bride became sick and died on their wedding day. Claudius's third wife, Messalina, is described as scheming and sex-obsessed. She supposedly carried out numerous affairs behind Claudius's back, even challenging Rome's most famous prostitute to a competition to see who could service the most men. Of course, Messalina won, at least so the tabloids claimed. In AD 48, she joined a mock marriage ceremony with one of her lovers, Gaius Silius. Fearing that the pair planned to murder him and then steal the imperial purple, Claudius ordered both executed. After this, the reign of Claudius entered into a dark phase. Claudius began reviving the treason trials of his nephew Caligula's day. He even personally attended not only the trials, but the torture sessions in which his officials gently persuaded his real or imagined enemies to tell him exactly what he wanted to hear. Claudius also ordered the Praetorian Guard to knock him on the head if he ever chose to marry again. Yet just a few months later, he took a fourth wife, his niece Agrippina, a sister of Caligula. She was 33 to Claudius's 58, and she had a 12-year-old son named Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus, better known as Nero. Indeed, Nero is probably the reason why Claudius wanted to marry his niece, because his own son was suffering from numerous disabilities. In a historical irony, Claudius, who chafed at being passed over so many times for promotion because of his disabilities, now refused to promote his own son for the very same reason. Yet Agrippina proved even more treacherous than Messalina. She is said to have manipulated Claudius into naming her son Nero as his successor, assuming Claudius didn't plan that all along. Yet what is known for certain is that Nero died soon after, convenient for Agrippina and Nero. He did indeed die during the year 54 AD after gorging himself at a banquet. Could he have died eating poisonous mushrooms? Did Agrippina poison him with the connivances of his food taster? Could the 60-year-old emperor have simply suffered from food poisoning? All that is known for certain is that Claudius died and Nero lived. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.